to a special edition of Reliable Sources, Obama and the Media. It's extraordinary to think about just how much changed, both in the country and in the media, during Obama's 8 years. Did you know that barely 150 million people were on Facebook when he was sworn in? Now the total is approaching 2 billion. The whole country and much of the world is connected by smartphones now. And this has given leaders like President Obama new ways to totally bypass the press. But at the same time, having access to so much instant information also meant this administration had to react in real time to videos of terror attacks, police shootings, oil spills, and so much more. And personally, I'll never forget how a man in Pakistan even tweeted about the bin Laden raid, not having any idea what was happening in Abbottabad that night. Now, in 2016, Obama is packing up. You know, at his last White House Correspondents' Dinner, he literally dropped the mic.
And with that, I just have two more words to say. Obama out.
Part of him maybe wants to get away from the mic for a while. So how did this administration approach thorny questions about media access and transparency? I sat down with outgoing Press Secretary Josh Earnest in the White House briefing room and heard his advice for his successor. Check this out. Thinking about 2009, the beginning of President Obama's time in this building, to now, what are the biggest changes in the media landscape that have affected your job and affected the way this White House communicates with the public?
We've seen the landscape change dramatically, and that means that there are news outlets that people had never heard of that are now, and didn't exist, that are now influential in our in the way that people get news, including political news. There are now outlets, or there are now media platforms that were in their infancy in 2009 that now are a prominent part of our political debate in this country. Reporters understand, for example, that Twitter and Facebook are good ways for them to get their reporting out, to get more readers and to get more viewers, is to distribute this information on Twitter and Facebook. The same is true of the president's message.
It's that old line, we're not so different, you and I. You're saying that the press people and the journalists actually experience the same changes due to technology.
Yeah, and we face the same challenges.
President Obama vowed to be the most transparent president with the most transparent administration in history. A lot of journalists who've had their FOIA requests stymied would argue otherwise. Did the government do enough to become more transparent, to act on FOIA requests in these 8 years?
Yeah. Well, there are hundreds of thousands of FOIA requests that were answered and responded to with at least some of the information that was requested. Mm-hmm. We also succeeded in this administration in putting much more of that information available online, so that there are a lot of journalists that didn't have to file a FOIA in order to get access to the information that they would like.
Are there shortcomings you see, though, now that you'd like to see the next administration address?
Well, I think that there are some institutional challenges with FOIA, which is that you're never going to hold a big political rally that attracts a large crowd by saying that you want to increase funding for government agencies so that they can be more effective in responding to FOIA requests. So there are, and that's just that is a basic fact of our political system. And this is an argument that I've made in a variety of settings. There is no constituency in American politics for transparency in government beyond journalists. But my point is, if this constituency, journalists, are going to be effective advocates for the issue that they care about, they need to remember that they have a responsibility not just to criticize those who are not living up to their expectations. Any activist will tell you that the way that you get people to support you and to support your cause is to give them credit when the credit is due, to applaud them when they do the thing that you want them to be doing, when they start moving in the right direction. And this is one of the beefs that I have with journalists, and this is a proposition I think that's going to get tested a little bit in 4 years. Given the fact that President Obama has been the most transparent president in American history, and given the fact that he has not gotten much, if any, credit for that from journalists, what incentive does a guy like Donald Trump, who I think has a predisposition against transparency when you consider the way that he handled his tax returns, what incentive, what argument does anybody have that there is a benefit for him to be more transparent? He certainly has a responsibility to, but is there a political benefit to him? What sort of leverage does the press corps have, other than to criticize him, frankly, in the same way that many journalists criticized Obama?
It sounds like there is quite a bit of respect in this room, even though it's obviously an antagonistic and uncomfortable relationship.
Yeah. Well, listen, my philosophy from this job from day one has been that if there's ever a day that there's not friction between the White House press corps and the White House press office, that's an indication that somebody on either side's not doing their job.
Final question for you, what advice you want to share with whoever takes over, whoever's behind that podium on January 22nd?
Yeah. Two things. The first is make sure you know where the president's head's at, because your ability to faithfully represent his point of view is critically important. And the second one is actually just a principle for life, which is be honest. Honesty and credibility and trustworthiness is the most important part of this job.
But isn't part of your job evading people's questions, trying not to fully answer when you don't have full answers?
I think that people can understand there's a give and take and that there are arguments that we try to make. And people also understand there are certain situations where I'm asked about things that I can't discuss publicly. But none of that should come close to compromising the truth. And because I think once it does, it significantly undermines your ability to be an effective advocate for the administration and for the things that you believe in. That's worth protecting.
Josh, thank you very much.
Nice to see you, Brian.
Thanks. And up next here, more of our exclusive interviews with the president's press team inside the West Wing, talking about Obama's appearances on Leno, on Fallon, on YouTube, and his rocky relationship with Fox News. We'll be right back.